I'm Jenny. I'm a coach and NLP practitioner, and I help introverts beat fear and self-doubt to design the life they love so they can thrive and not just survive. So I was the middleman, or the middle woman, middle person, whatever you want to call it. But I was the person in the middle, the one between the IT department and the business. And let's just say the IT department are the introverts and the business are the extroverts. I was in the middle. I was the ambivert. I was able to move between the two groups of people. And although I'm quite naturally introverted, I worry about what I say, I rehearse it in my head, or I used to anyway. I don't so much these days. I rarely friends request anyone on Facebook, and I feel really exhausted after spending a lot of time with a lot of people. I don't find it that comfortable. At the same time, I love people. I love socializing. I will speak up if I need to, and the need to is sometimes the key. I join networking groups. I really enjoy it. I enjoy training people. I enjoy giving presentations. I will turn up to places on my own, even though I feel uncomfortable. So none of the extroverted tendencies are necessarily easy for me, but I've been practicing them for years and I do enjoy those things once I'm there. I think it's possibly because I grew up in a really big family. My dad is the eldest of 10, and that overrode a lot of my introverted nature because there were always people around. We were always in large groups of people. So when I was the middleman within this company, I was helping to build a system, and it was a system that took 4 years in the end to build. So the communication between the IT department and the business and the IT department was really crucial, because if the programmers didn't know what to program, they couldn't do their job. And if the business wasn't portraying that in a useful way, then they wouldn't get what they wanted. So communication is definitely key in that circumstance. And it was only recently, when I was looking at the situation that I had in that time in the ship management company, where I was thinking about the role of being an introvert and an extrovert. And I think the IT department are often thought of as being introverts, and quite often they were, but not always. And it didn't mean to say that just because they were introverts, they didn't have leadership skills. Some of them had really excellent leadership skills. And so for me, being in the middle there between the two was a great learning curve. And it was only when I was thinking about it recently and all the skills that I acquired in that time, because I also did training in our offices around the world. And when you're training in one culture, it's very different to training in another culture. And you have to learn to read body language and the way people say things. And you have to learn how to question in more than one way. In NLP, we talk about the fact that the meaning of the communication is not what you say at all, but it's the response that you get. And I think it's really easy to blame others when you have been misunderstood. And it happens all the time. They weren't listening, they don't care, they did it on purpose. Those sorts of things that people say all the time to put the blame onto the other person. But in NLP, we look at ourselves and we go, well, how could we have communicated that better, differently, to make it be understood, and then therefore to get the response that we were actually looking for? So how can we communicate better when we're not getting the response we're looking for? We have to communicate in the way that's helpful for the other person. So it's completely irrelevant what we want. It's about what they want and what's best for them. And one of the things that you can look at, there's so many facets to this, I'm going to talk about a few. One of the things you can look at is, are they a big picture person or are they a small picture person? They're detailed. So if they're the big picture person, they will get confused and bored by detail. I'm one of those. I really like big picture. And when you start telling me all the little bits and the bobs, and I just switch off and something else is really interesting. So then it's not that I'm intentionally not listening. It's just not a style that suits me very well. I can get the detail later, but I just want to know at first the overall story. So give the big picture. Similarly with small picture people, if they want the detail and you just give them the big picture, they're going to get easily frustrated. They want the facts. Giving them the big picture will feel overwhelming and they'll feel stuck. Similarly, if you give too many details to a big picture, they can be overwhelmed too with the detail. So it's working out what that person is and what they need in that moment when you're conveying what you need. So how can you do that? You can ask them simple questions. What's your favourite holiday? How was your journey today? What are you having for tea tonight? And you'll know the big picture person will say, I'm having lasagna for tea. Or they'll say, my favourite holiday is a beach holiday in Mauritius, wherever. Now, the detail person, the one that needs all the detail, will tell you every step of their journey that day, how they got into the car, what happened in the car, what was on the radio. They will tell you about the holiday and all the sites they went to visit and the temperature and the food that they ate. They will tell you about what they're making for tea, and they'll give you the great detail about the recipe and all sorts of things involved and how they're going to make it and where they found it and why they've decided. So you can tell very easily if somebody is big picture or detail. And if you confuse the two and you don't pick up on those cues, it can turn out that you do not get the response that you were looking for. So it is worth finding out whether people are big picture or whether they are detailed, because that can help you filter the information that you give over. So the next thing to look at when you're trying to communicate and get the response that you want is, do they understand why it's important? And it may seem obvious to you, but it's not always to others. There was a time when I was working on the project and not all the information was input fully into the system at that point. It was still a really new system. And you had the drop-down menus. And so people using the system sometimes would just select the nearest thing because the thing they wanted wasn't there. And in doing this, there could have been a whole knock-on effect. People not getting paid correctly, people being allowed to work in unsafe conditions, people not being tracked correctly. And so to me, it just seemed obvious that they would ask for the correct information to be put into the system and I would do it for them. But they didn't understand that. I hadn't communicated that to them. So when I said to them, look, you can't have this, you come and ask me and I will input the correct information for you. We add to it, it's a database, it can be added. And the implications of you not doing this is, see, people not being paid and all sorts of things could go wrong. As soon as they have that explanation, it doesn't happen again because they knew why it was important. They knew what it was they were doing and why they were doing it. So if you keep asking people to do stuff and they don't understand why they're doing it and it feels really pointless to them, quite often they won't do it. If you explain why, then they'll do it. So the next thing on the list is, are you saying things out loud that you are thinking? Are you actually saying what you want? And this is so common, especially of introverts, expecting others to guess what you are thinking because you don't want to say it. You then spend the next 3 weeks going over and over in your head what you should have said, what they should have done, why you're not valued as a member of the team, why don't people listen to you, why do you have to spell everything out, they should just know, and on this mind chatter goes. And if we just say clearly what it is we want from the beginning, quite often the response is not what we expect in a good way. So we get the things that we want. So if you learn the tools to speak up and in a way that other people can understand, life gets a lot easier. So it may not feel easy at first. It may feel almost impossible to say what it is you want and start speaking up. But that is why we learn the skills. And the skills are so important. And because it's a skill, it can be learned. So speaking up, learning how to speak up, having the confidence to say what it is you want, instead of just wondering all the time why people never listen to you. Ask yourself really clearly, did I say it? or did I just think it? Because quite often we have so much going on in our heads, especially when you're introverts, lots and lots of mind chatter, and we forget to say things out loud. So double check, did I say it out loud or did I just think it? And one of the really great tools that we can use for learning how to communicate better, and I love it, I use it with all of my clients, is DISC. And DISC is a way of discovering your personality preference. And it's really quite accurate. And the people that I do it with go, oh, wow, it's like you've read my mind and you don't even really know me. So here's a summary of DISC. The Ds. Ds and DISC are dominant. They like to instruct, they like to tell people what to do. They can be quite abrupt, and they're not really people focused, they're more task focused. They're action takers and they want things done, and they want it done yesterday, and they don't really care how it's done, they just want it done. They will delegate, so they will tell you what to do. That can really upset some of the other profiles, particularly the S and the C. The I, I'm an I, we're influencers. We like to talk quite a lot. Did you guess? We're motivating. We're real team players. We like to jolly people along. But we can be a bit over-exuberant for some. We can struggle to finish things and we get very easily distracted. There's always something new and shiny to take our focus away from what we should be doing. S's are steady. They are very secure. They like people, they're very people-centred, but not lots of people necessarily, and in a much quieter, gentler manner than the I's. They are team players and they want the best for everyone. They are slow to get going and they really don't like change, but once they embrace it, as long as it's a slower process and everything's explained to them, they can make those changes. They just don't like it an awful lot. C's, they're compliant, they like rules, they like tasks, they like things done in a very detailed, specific way. They want to know all of the detail. So they get things finished, but it takes them longer. So the D's can get quite frustrated with the C's because they want tasks done like yesterday, and the C's want them done properly. So the C's can also be frustrated with the D's. And when you know this, it's much easier to go, oh, they're just being a D today. It's okay. It's nothing about me. It's not personal. You can tell the I's to be quiet, although to be honest, I's don't like that because they quite like to be people. They like to be liked. So there's a good balance for that. So my clients generally fall into the CS category. And it always interests me that as an I attract CS characters. We're very different in our styles, but it's important to us to know who we are and what our preferences are so we can communicate well to get the best outcome. The CSs, I believe, often feel inspired and motivated by my coaching. And once they've decided to take action, that's what they need. They need a bit of force behind them and a bit of what the I gives, which is full-on cheerleading. And I just have to make sure that I sit back sometimes and give my clients time and space to absorb everything, so I don't take things too quickly. And that's for me to also learn about my style and how I can adapt that for my clients. So I will adapt everything for my clients, and because I'm very open, my clients know that they can come and speak to me. So my C, for example, is off the charts, on the floor, not really anywhere within my graph. I occasionally will bend down and pick up my C off the floor and I'll put it on the table and I go, right, it's a C day today. I need to get these done. It's detailed. I need to be focused. So I need my C to help me. And you can do that with your style. So sometimes a CS has to have D. We need to delegate. We have CSs that are leaders and they still need to be a bit dominant sometimes and delegate. And they can learn to do it in their own way because it's a skill. So it's not that you cannot do those things. It's just it's not your preference. You may find yourself in the middle of a big team where you've got to tell people what to do. You may have to accommodate a lot of different characters. So knowing DISC profile can really help you with giving the best type of communication to get the best outcome and to feel like you've been heard. So I want you to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how confident you feel about speaking and being heard. And how would it feel to speak up more confidently? Because I have to say, it's not something I did as a child. Some would argue that I did, but I never felt really comfortable about it, whereas now I do. And it's a skill that you can learn. My clients have changed their life using their communication changes, the tools that we go through. So if they can do it, then so can anybody. So if you are fed up of being misunderstood, misheard, unheard, unseen, and you want to do more in life, then I promise you can do that. We can make great changes and design the life that you really want to be living. And we've created a really easy process to make that change happen. You can go onto the website and you can book a free introductory session to see whether you want to work with me and whether I want to work with you and whether I can do anything for you. And you do it all through the website. You'll get a Zoom link, and when you're ready, you can join me on a Zoom call to see how we can work together. In the meantime, if that all feels still a bit too much, you can subscribe to my newsletters that's full of motivation. You can subscribe here, press the buttons, the bells, and all the rest of it that's surrounding me. We love it when you do that. And most of all, remember to have a really powerful day.